All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming back to New Curriculum 30-minute bite-sized boosts, 6 recorded lunchtime sessions for K-6 teachers. My name is Cheryl Babin. I'm a designer of professional learning at the Calgary Regional Consortium. I'd like to start our day with a land acknowledgement. It's very important that we recognize that the land we're gathered here on today is an important and sacred place within Treaty 7 and the traditional territories of the Niitsitapi from the Blackfoot Confederacy, including the Siksika, Piikani, Kainai Nations, the Yahari Nakota of Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley Nations, and the Dene of Tsuut'ina Nation. Southern Alberta is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. As participants gathered here in the heart of this territory, we acknowledge that we have an ongoing responsibility to protect and honor all of life within our shared reality. Thank you for joining me today. Today's connection to First Peoples Principles of Learning comes back again to learning that's holistic, reflective, and experiential. And I really want to talk about that reflexive and that reflective piece today, because what we're looking at is a sense of how do we use data to really inform our instruction. And so the bit.ly link for today's slides, it's the normal bit.ly start with Take a Bite 5 and a QR code so that you can access the slides there. The overarching agenda for today is to think about, wait, what? Which data are we actually using? How do we count that data? How do we make sense of it? Why does it matter? We'll go through a few different data collecting tools, and then we'll take a look at how you can differentiate and inform your instruction. I'm showing you our slides in the presenter view today, but I wanted to make sure I remembered to tell you that in some of the slides, there are additional speaker notes. So when you do open up the slide deck and you're looking back through it, you may want to just check into those speaker notes at the bottom so that you can have additional detail in case I don't remember to say everything that I should on those slides, or if you're looking for a little bit more background. Okay, so here we go. Isn't this little guy cute? We sure do have a lot of data. And when we think about it, it's not just the expected screeners that we need to do from Alberta Education, although those help. Lots of schools and lots of districts have mandatory assessments that everyone does across the board. We have really high level data like provincial achievement tests, and we have the screeners, but we also have other kinds of data as well. We have collection of data that we can gather through ongoing documenting and monitoring of student learning. Every day we're capturing a collection of our observations, our conversations, the ways in which students perform and create products. So here are some tools and strategies that may help. And you'll notice that colored triangle. That triangle is meant to represent the triangulation of assessment data that we're collecting. And so we're grabbing from different categories and different skills and different ways of demonstrating knowledge and understanding. And so that's how I've tried to represent that collection in the triangle. This particular tool, excuse me, is adapted from my new favorite book called Rebooting Assessment by Damian Cooper and Jeff Catania. I've adapted this particular reproducible and created it to best keep it open so that it can fit into many different assessment structures. This is called Look-Fors, or a thought collector. So when you are when students are engaged in a learning experience, and we remember from previous sessions that good learning experiences also are great for us to curate assessment data and to be able to pull and harvest from that opportunity. So when you are working with students or watching them do a performance, or they're in the middle of a task, you can be walking around and you can set yourself up with some teacher prompts. So things like, can you tell me how you arrived at that answer or that conclusion? Or wait a second, can you show me how you did that? Or help me understand what you're thinking here, some clarifying questions. You could check for understanding by saying, what else can you add to your answer? Or I'm a little unclear. But these types of prompts, or it could be something really quite skill specific, like demonstrates understanding of place value, or as you're looking through writing samples, you might be able to say, is using adjectives correctly, or starting to really apply spelling patterns that we've been working on in our word work section. So you can load up your thought collector and things that you want to look for, and then have these either printed out or on your iPad or on your computer, however works best for you. And then you can start to indicate different levels. And so I decided to color code the levels to sort of, rather than putting achievement indicators, because sometimes the student's development is not even aligning with the achievement indicators of that grade level. And so I wanted it to be really flexible so that you could decide what that could look like. And then you could add in description of what that success criteria looks like, so that you and your teaching collaborators, your partners across the hall, you're all looking for the same things. And that helps to align and define what proficiency looks like. So if you would like to, there's a copy of this. If you just click on this link, it will pop you out. I don't know why I'm getting this message. I'm at the office today. You should not get that. That's a Wi-Fi problem, not this one. So I apologize. But you will get a Google copy of that particular document. So I hope you'll enjoy it. The next thing I wanted to talk about was how, when we're looking for these things, we want to make sure that we are planning for the margins, if you will. Todd Rose tells us to drop the idea of average and focus on jaggedness. And so if you were to take two students and think about some of their characteristics in terms of their learning profiles, similarities in vocabulary, knowledge, matrix reasoning, visual puzzles, memory, all of these different kinds of things, no two learners will line up perfectly. And so to indicate an average, you'll see that if we measure and try to plan for the average, in lots of ways, we're not actually meeting the needs of either of those students. And when you add multiple learners to that, the likelihood of meeting the needs of all of those learners actually goes down. So knowing that human beings don't line up perfectly, there is no average learner. So what we need to do is we need to plan for those margins and think about how do we support that. Another tool that you can use, this one is really simple. And again, there's a copy of the template for you there. This one was provided by Katie White, who is a wonderful assessment author, and I would highly recommend her work. When you think about that, you want to keep track of what students' needs and strategies that you have to support the measure going along. And so her template is really quite simple, but it also provides you with the direction that you want to go. So you would identify a target focus, and then you would start to group students according to learning needs. So if you introduce a lesson and you realize that you have multiple needs emerging from what you're noticing, you can start to say, okay, this group over here needs to circle back and take a look at the big idea again, and this group over here, they need to focus in on one particular skill that is emerging as needing some support. And this group over here, they've mastered this and they need to go forward. So then you can start to map out the students that would fit into each of those learning needs. I'm doing lots of work with my hands today. I hope it's not distracting. And then you can start to map out where you're going to go from there. What does your learning plan look like as you work through those needs? So there's another tool that I hope will help you. I dug into a favorite. It's not the most recent version of Elementary and Middle School Mathematics Teaching Developmentally by Van de Waal, Karp, Bay Williams, and McGarvey and Folk, but it is one example. And in that particular resource, they talk a little bit about different ways that you can try to collect data. And so I took a snapshot out of those resources. where one of them has like a clipboard and little index cards or pre-printed cards that have observation notes, and you can carry them around with you, and you can make notes like, okay, on November 8th, explain 2 ways to add this particular number, showing flexibility. She stated that she was proud of herself. And so then that was a comment that really shows growth, and those are important things to document as well. On the right-hand side, you can see that there are categories like rather than specific achievement levels, particularly if you're looking at skills, it's not like a comprehensive depth of understanding, but you're just tracking, do they have it or not quite yet? Or what do you need? So this particular one has not there yet, on target, above and beyond, and a place for comments. And so you can really break down the skills and create a little tracking sheet that can help you capture some of the observations that you're making. Another example that came out of Van de Waal's work was a dispositions checklist. And you'll see this one at the top here. Students' names are down the left-hand side. Have more than 4 that using this. Look, I haven't got a clue, but I really do know that there's many more. And so this dispositions checklist could be an ongoing document that helps you to track different characteristics or behaviors that indicate growth or development through the competencies or the disposition. So looking at moments of confidence or participation in small group discussions, or advocates for themselves. It's an opportunity for you to grab a quick little piece of data that helps you to remember and keep track of all of these things. I know that these tools are really valuable to me because I just can't remember everything all the time. And so also a chance for you to keep comments. There's lots of digital tools that you can use to adopt this way of thinking. Lots of teachers are using their smartphones to try to capture some of these things. You could even snap a picture of something and then tag it with a note. If you happen to be using a tool such as My Blueprint or Seesaw, something like that, you have lots of opportunities in that to modify and use these kinds of checklists as well. While we're here talking about dispositions, I wanted to also remind everyone that the competencies that were established in 2013 with the ministerial order still exist and have been highlighted in the New Learn Alberta. And so in addition to the competencies not only still existing, but there's been additional work to implement progressions. And so this particular screenshot here, it's very small, but you can click on this link to go directly there. Come on, go all the way through. Oh, thank you. You can see here, and I'll try to make this a little bit bigger for you. So in Division 1, and we're looking specifically at critical thinking, and you can see the age bands moving across the top. In critical thinking as a competency, there are I statements that help you to determine what types of things you're working on in a particular age band. So these can also be really helpful for creating checklists and documentation trackers that can help to provide evidence of when you're noticing and seeing these things in your students. And so you can see that as they move through the grades by Division 2, ages 9 to 11-ish, they start to look at, I can pose questions to analyze information, or I can make inferences, predictions, or decisions. And you could pull that one apart. I know the difference between an inference and an observation, something like that. So that is also indicated in there for you on this particular slide. I hope you'll find that useful. All right, now this next section here is a little bit like a choice board. And so I'm going to really encourage you to think about what you need and what you want from this section. I'm going to give you a little bit of a walkthrough and then hope that you might be able to find a few more minutes in your day or in the month sometime where you might be able to come back and take a look at some of these possibilities. And so what we've done is we've taken ELAL, math, and physical education and wellness, And we've tried to find some examples of ways that you would be able to gather and harvest data. So using both mandated and teacher-created triangulated assessments and experiences to inform your instruction. Just get this out of the way there. Okay, so in ELAL, you will have a chance to, many of you are using the lens in the CC3, and so you can think about how you might reveal strengths and evidence of learning. In math, there's an opportunity in the coming slides to examine the numeracy screenings and the assessments that support. And you can also think about what other resources you could use to reveal student strengths, and the same for phys ed and wellness. So as we pop into the next, this whole slide is about ELAL. And so when we think about the triangle, where I've separated this into products, observations, and conversations. And so you'll see here that for this products one in particular, you'll really want to remember to log into your new Learn Alberta account to access these links properly. Otherwise, you won't be able to view them because they are kept into the locked section of the assessment hub within New Learn Alberta. And I'll show you where those are just to make sure. So in the products, I've provided a couple of things. This is information that will take you directly to New Learn Alberta, where you are asked to log into your account. See how it said not authorized in the background there? Then you log in. Come on. You all wanted to watch me log in. Sorry. I know your lunchtime goes quick. All right, so it comes to the Provincial Assessment Hub, and you'll notice how this little lock is open, which means you're logged in and you have access. And so this will take you to the literacy screening. If you click on this first box here, you will see the Provincial Literacy Screening Assessments, information there, supporting documents, assessment for data collection access instructions, and also some reading intervention lessons that you can use to support. I will also come back to this on the math screen, but this is the section for the numeracy screenings. And you can see that there's a tab for each grade level up to grade 4 for numeracy screening assessments and intervention activities that can support. And then there's the numeracy screening assessment support documents here. So there's quite a lot of information, the French version as well, and you'll be able to access those with your login. In addition to those types of products, I've included a couple of different pieces. There is a video here that shows 2 students in grade 1 giving each other feedback about the writing process. And it's quite wonderful to see what they come up with. And it's also interesting because we can tell that this, based on the information that they've been given on the chart in the back, that they've been coached through how to be a writing coach and how to walk through and give someone else feedback. So even in grade 1, there's an opportunity to collect data. There's a link here to a reading response observation note form, and then again, a link to the Look For thought collector. Here is a video about reading strategies through a student-teacher interview or conference, and then another couple of resources that can help you gather information about ELAL. Now, I'm not going to walk through each one of these. Like I said, it's a little bit of a choice board that I hope you will see as a great option and possibility for when you have a little bit more time. In math, I've provided a similar kind of choice board to think about how you might reveal strengths and evidence of learning. So again, there are products here. This is a video from Alberta Assessment Consortium around 4 techniques for everyday formative assessment, and then linking back to the New Learn Alberta camp. That makes it sound like it's where you go to roast marshmallows and sing songs, but it's actually in where those numeracy assessments are located in your account. With regard to collecting observations, this visual came from the numeracy screeners, and then I've provided resources through the Math Learning Center and some other ways that you can capture conversations through math language and a few resources there. So I hope you'll enjoy. With regard to physical education and wellness, there's another landing page for choices that can help you capture products of learning, observations, and conversations. I'm just going to pause for a minute and see if anyone has any questions about the choices within these choice boards. You can use the chat or go ahead and turn on your microphone.
Do you have the direct links that you could pop in the chat? Like, I'm just really curious to look at the look fors and the observations. Do you have easy access to that to pop in the chat?
Yeah.
I'll go look after, but I just kind of wanted to.
Okay, so this is the chart. It looks like my Wi-Fi kicked in properly. And so there's two parts to it that didn't show up on that. I didn't put them all on the slide, but so it's really open-ended, and you can change your teacher prompts according to it. Gives you a few to start with.
Gotcha.
And then you can also say, have another little table that is just looking exactly for like proof, right? If you want to say, Cheryl, the challenge was this, and I can write that in, and then just a bit of a checklist. So these are meant to be ideas for specific things. And you can use the cusps in the New Learn Alberta to help you determine what your look fors will be, if that's the part that you're kind of looking at. Or with your grade team partner, it's nice to be able to say, okay, today when we are doing our reading conferences, we are going to look for these things. Or maybe you're building skills and goals with students, and so your next set of look fors will be looking for fluency and noticing, oh, your sentence is sounding like a bouncy ball. Let's try to get those words coming out like a rolling ball and having it fluent and that sort of thing. So, whoops, going too fast. Any other questions? I hope that I was able to answer that. Okay, let's get back here to go back to my full screen. Okay, so now that you have all of that data, let's think about, well, now what? What do you do now? And so imagine that you have triangulated data for all of your students. Again, there's more than 4. I get that. And so what we're going to think about then are, what are the possible outcomes? So we've collected assessment data about their reading, and we know that they need to work on these particular letters by using the Words Their Way screener, or we're looking at these word patterns, and we know that these sounds are still to come. And meanwhile, they're practicing their writing through that work. And so, or maybe it's a math concept, or whatever it happens to be. We can recognize that there are going to be some possible outcomes. And so what we want to do is group students that have similar needs based on those results so that we can make it manageable. Some students will be ready for the next piece. Some students will have revealed misconceptions about key concepts or the big ideas, or these are just examples, of course. And some students will need to continue to build skills necessary for fulsome understanding. So now you have this differentiated need and they're identified. So you have to decide what to do next. So some students would be ready for another step, or to add layers of complexity to what they have already done. For some, you might need to try another approach, perhaps draw in a different resource, or give them a different approach in the design of what you were trying to unpack. Some students may just need, and this is really important, once you've given feedback on something, you want to be able to embed recovery time. And that's a place where you're able to consolidate and use that feedback to actually improve. So let's say you've given some feedback about a writing sample. They need to be able to apply those skills and practice them a little bit more. And so that recovery time needs to be determined and built right in. So you can see how, and you know this from your practice and from your students, that this layout is really where the differentiation needs to happen. Then we might have to add in recovery time again as those students come back in and pull those things together. And then finally, they might have, it's a chance for us to think, are they all ready for the next step? And how can we really use our resources to support this way of planning? Are you thinking about small groups running through stations or perhaps centers, or are you mixing up your day in ways that have students working on one thing? Maybe it's during a chance to do some something that they are fairly independent with, and you can pull students in a small group to work on something else. And so it's really about the art of it, how you can pull all those pieces together at that point. Here is an example of an open sort of box and flow chart that would allow you to try and play with this idea. So if you wanted to try it out, you can indicate your target, think about some resources, just jot note form. This is not meant to be a huge, immense planner, but just to help us map out, okay, what is it that we're trying to learn? How do we use the resources? What assessment strategies will help us curate and harvest the assessment data? Then we look at the data. What do we do next? Separate them into recovery time, a new angle, a next step, and then always coming back to how are we helping them to get toward the target that they understand. I want to bring your attention in the last couple minutes to this wonderful site. It's called Roadmap to the Unfinished Learning, and it's it's a collection of interventions, and it's a website that was created by my colleagues within the Alberta Regional Professional Development Consortium. And so from a collaboration of across the province, you can see that when our students are, coming to this place and you've got all of these different spots where you need to add in a new angle or a next step, you want to be able to know, well, what do we do and how do we get there from here? So in this website, and hopefully if you haven't seen it before, you'll take some time to check it out. It's separated into two sections, literacy and numeracy, and there's a French version for the numeracy. So when you go into one of these sections, you'll see that there are supports for teacher-led interventions and also for EA interventions, which is so amazing because our EAs are gifts and we want to be able to equip everyone with the skills and tools that will really support. Once you go into teacher-led interventions, for example, you will see a copy of a phonological awareness development continuum. And so there are skills to develop left to right and typically bottom to top. And there is a PDF of this particular continuum here. If you keep scrolling down, you will see that there are video resources that will go with each of these steps. And so as you click into these instructional resources, you can see them all loading here. It's just a wealth of resources and information. So if you're thinking, okay, I've recognized that this group of student needs to learn how to detect rhymes. So then you can click on this particular resource and you can make it much bigger so that everyone that you're working with can see it. Let's open this up a little bit more. Supporting unfinished learning. And so what is it? How do we get there? How can you detect rhyme? Why teach it? There's comparisons between the current curriculum, and this was designed during when the ELAL was in draft form, but so you can see those comparisons there. And so for each of these particular skills within that intervention, it gives you support to know what to do and how to do that. And so this resource is a wonderful support to what you already do and know to be good practice in your classrooms. And I just wanted to bring this great resource back to your attention. Here's the numeracy intervention support, again for EAs and teachers, things that you can do in the classrooms with specific skills that students might be revealing a need for. And so I wanted to try to close that loop by giving you some ideas for how you could help to fill those spaces, those gaps. I really don't like to talk about students in that way, but just to help support them with with clarity and understanding, so that when they're encountering new material, we can see that they have the strengths that they need to be able to do that work. Okay, so that's ARPDC, and I hope you'll enjoy that link. The last thing that I want to share again is just how do we support students along the way as they're building that? And I believe I shared this, the Guide to Success with you. I learned about this from Dr. Garfield Ginny Newman, who is a brilliant educator and always continues to inspire me and teach me lots about how best to do this. And a Guide to Success really offers an opportunity to give students scaffolded step-by-step requirements. So this is not a rubric, but it's a checklist that these are the things I need to do. And then here is what excellent looks like. Here's an example of that. And then a couple of options. You can play with these boxes a little bit to say, what's going well? Yeah, I got that. That looks really well. And maybe this needs a little bit more work. Maybe it's about showing clarity or using your words to explain your way of thinking. And then while you're collecting this data throughout the process of learning, it really it reduces the amount of time that you have to spend at the end of an assessment trying to collect information without having enough time to really recover or respond to it. So click here on this image and it will take you to a whole folder full of Guide to Success examples. I hope you'll enjoy. So thank you very much, friends, for joining me either live or catching the recording. I hope you're enjoying the sessions. Any feedback that you have would be particularly wonderful. And at the end of next week's session, I will be giving you a survey so that you can offer insights that will help us to improve, to make our work better, more useful for you, and even in terms of ways in which you might be able to tackle the learning. So I will thank you very much for coming and really appreciate all the hard work you're doing. Hang in there, friends. We're here with you at your sides. Take good care.